Hello, TJ with TJ Small Engine Repair. Today we're going to be working on a Craftsman push mower. Customer called me and stated that they can't get it to run unless they put some ether into it, and even then, it's having a hard time running. I have a feeling like we might be dealing with a gummed up carburetor due to improper fuel use. So, first thing we're going to do is we're going to try and confirm what the customer stated, which is, if you pull it, it won't start. So let's make sure that that's the case. Well, we've confirmed the customer's complaint. Now let's go ahead. I'm going to take this air cleaner off, and I'm going to give it a little bit of aerosol help real quick and see if we can't get this thing to fire up. If it does, then that tells me we do have a bad carburetor. So let's go ahead and take a look. All right, diagnosis confirmed. We're dealing with a gummed up carb. So let's go ahead and get this thing taken out. I'm going to show you the innards of it and show you how to properly clean a carburetor and get your push mower running. Let's go. So in order to be able to take the air box off of the carburetor, we're going to need an 8mm wrench or an 8mm socket in order to be able to get access to these 3 screws here. We're going to take those off, and once we do, this air box should come right out. Let's go ahead and do that. And there we go. Now, this is really dirty, so we're going to definitely get this cleaned up in order to be able to make sure that we don't have anything getting sucked up into the intake or anything like that. We'll get this tidied up. So now the next part that we're going to need to do is we're going to need to disconnect our fuel line off the carburetor. Alright, so in order to do that, you're probably going to need a pair of pliers in order to do that, or a screwdriver because of the hose clamp, and the hose might be stuck on there pretty good, especially if you're sitting on an older unit. So I'm going to go ahead, get those pliers and a screwdriver, and we're going to get this thing off. Now that we've got the fuel line off and we've got it pinched off so that way fuel doesn't leak everywhere, we're going to go ahead and start to remove the carburetor off of the engine. Now, what you're going to need in order to do this one is you're going to need a 10mm socket or a 10mm wrench in order to be able to get access to these 2 bolts back here. Let's go ahead and get that. Now that we've gotten the bolts off, we're going to go ahead and start to disconnect our linkages off of the carburetor. Now for this particular one, this one has the auto choke on it. Right up on top here, there's actually a 1/4 inch nut on here that connects the shaft onto the carburetor. If we remove that, then this is going to be super simple. So let's go ahead and remove that. Okay, now that that's disconnected, all we have to do is just rotate the carburetor throttle off of the throttle linkage. And she's out. So let's go ahead, get this thing cleaned up on the outside here, and do an inspection and see what we got going on inside of this thing. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to get the outside cleaned off with a little bit of shop air. Get most of the debris off of it. now we're going to go ahead and we're going to get some carb cleaner or some brake cleaner on there to clean this all up, because one thing we don't want to do while we're cleaning the carburetor is get any of this stuff on the inside. So now that we've got a clean area to work with, the carburetor's exterior is nice and clean, we're going to go ahead and crack the bowl open and see what we got inside. What you're going to need for that is a 1/2 inch wrench. The fact that this isn't spinning nice and freely gives me a bad vibe about what I'm about ready to see inside of here. Alrighty, let's go ahead and take a look. And there we go. Okay, I want you guys to see what was inside of this carburetor bowl. I don't know if you could see all of that. Yeah, that is not good. This is what happens when you use regular pump gas that you get out of the gas station pumps, stuff that has ethanol in it, E15. Anything beyond 10% ethanol is not good for small engines. It eats away at the hoses. It will separate and start to gel and corrode. It attracts water. It's the worst thing that you could put inside of your small engines. So we need to go ahead and get this thing all cleaned up. So the first thing we'll do is we'll clean the bowl out. Make sure that that's all done. Take a little bit of carb spray. Now that looks almost brand new. Now we're going to go ahead, we're going to remove our float out of the carburetor so that way we can see how the needle and seat look. How you're going to do that? So you're going to need a pair of needle nose pliers or side cutters, but needle nose pliers are my personal preference. You're going to grab the needle that's right here. You're going to pull this out, this little shaft. Do not lose this. This is very easy to lose. Do not do that. That's why I like to carry around these magnetic trays. You can get these at Harbor Freight for like $2. They're excellent. I have a whole stack of them right here, and I keep one right at my carburetor cleaning station specifically for that reason there. Now we're going to go ahead and we're going to remove the float. We're going to see, okay, the float just popped right out. Needle stuck around behind. All right, so what we have here in this carburetor is a metal needle. Now, if you pull your carburetor apart and you see that you have a metal needle, that means that down inside of the carburetor here, I don't know if you can see it, there will be a rubber seat. What that means is that that seat is able to be removed and replaced with a new one. So if you ever have an issue where your engine is flooding all the time, if you go to fire it up and it's just constantly flooding, or if you go to check your oil and you smell gas when you check the oil, if you smell fuel, that usually means, more than likely, that your needle or seat are not closing correctly. It means that they need to get replaced, because that's allowing fuel to feed into the crankcase. Now inside of this carburetor, you have your main jets. Now this one, unfortunately, is not able to be removed. This is a non-serviceable jet. That doesn't mean it can't be cleaned, just means you can't take it out. Now for this one right here, pretty simple to take care of if you have one of these. You can get these on Amazon for super cheap. These right here are welding tip cleaners, and these are perfect for cleaning carburetors because they come in all different sizes. You get down to some really fine piece ones where you can get down to the really small tiny jets. There's only a couple jets that are in carburetors, not all of them, but in some of them, where this will not work, and even the smallest sized cleaner will not get in there. And what I've known to work for that is either one, a bread tie. You take all the plastic off of it, you take that bread tie, that can fit in there, or a wire brush, and you pull just one of the wire brush tips off, that can usually get in there and get those jets cleaned out good that way. But for this one here, these tips will work just fine. I'm going to go ahead and shove these through until I get one that fits nicely. It's not grinding into it and filing it away. I want it just enough to where it's fitting in, but I can feel just some slight resistance. That lets me know I'm getting a nice, good fit, and I'm actually going to be cleaning the insides of that jet. And we'll follow that up, of course, with some carb spray. Let's go ahead. Another area that you're going to want to look at is down in here. You have these other ports that you need to get cleaned out. Again, find the right tip and get them cleaned out. Now that we've cleaned this all up and we've gotten our tips in all places and put the carb spray through all those ports and make sure we get it all cleaned up, we're going to go ahead and hit it with some shop air just to get it all cleaned up and dried off. We don't want any of this stuff left in there. We want to get it all dry and clean. And you don't want to go ahead and hit it real hard with this shop air. Sorry. Because you don't want to put too much into it. You just want to get a little bit. It's just enough to get it dry. It doesn't take much. You don't want to damage the carburetor by putting too much air into it. Because there are some carburetors that actually have check valves, and that if you put too much pressure to it, you'll blow the check valve, and you need to get yourself a brand new carburetor. So, we don't want to do that. So now that our carburetor is cleaned up, we're going to go ahead and reinstall our needle and float onto the carburetor. You're just going to put it on there like that. It's going to hang, and you're just going to drop down into the hole that's got right there. And then, carefully reinstall the metal shaft that holds the float bowl in place. And there you go. Now, last thing that we need to clean up is the float bowl nut right here. Now, the reason why you're going to clean this one up is because this actually acts as a jet as well. If you look, it's got those holes there and a hole right there. Now, if you notice, it's completely gummed up. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to get this all cleaned out, and then we're going to reinstall it back onto the carburetor with the float bowl. We'll get that thrown in there and see if it works. Much better. Now we can see through it completely. We can see all the light through it. This is now clean. Let's go ahead and reinstall it. Going to take your bowl, you're going to put it on. On this particular one, it doesn't matter which way that it goes. Some of them will have a lip or an indent in here to show where it orients onto the carburetor for where the float and needle sit. So that way it gives it clearance. This one, it doesn't matter. So once you take that, you're going to take your float bowl nut. You're going to thread it on. And make sure that we get this on nice and snug. You don't need to over tighten it. Again, it's a brass fitting. You don't want to strip it out. It's very easy to do. You just want to get this on there nice and snug so that way it doesn't leak gas out of it. And there we go. Let's go ahead and get it reinstalled and take this thing for a spin. So now we're going to go ahead and we're going to take our carburetor and we're going to throw it onto the lawnmower here. So first thing you want to make sure that area is clean for it to get connected to. We're going to start by reattaching the throttle linkage back on. Put that there. That onto there. And then we're going to attach our choke back on. Get that just threaded on enough to hold it in place. And then we're gonna take our 10mm bolts. We're gonna thread them back on. Snug them up for the time being. We'll tighten them up here in just a second. And we're going to take our spring here, and reattach it to the choke. It freely opens and closes. I don't know if you can see that, but it's opening and closing. So we know that everything's hooked up correct. Now we're going to go ahead and get this all tightened up here. Make sure it's still open and closed freely. Alrighty. Alright, now that that's on, we're going to go ahead and reattach our fuel line back onto the carburetor. Okay. Make sure that opens back up. Sometimes if your fuel line is a little old, it might stay pinched a little bit. So just massage a little bit, get it back open. Once you've done that, make sure that you reattach the hose clamp back where it belongs. There we go. Now we're going to go ahead, we're going to take our air cleaner box, we're going to go ahead and reattach that onto the carburetor. And this actually went right here. Now that we've got our air box attached to the carburetor, we're going to go ahead, reinstall our top cover, and then we're going to go ahead and fire this thing up. I am not putting the air filter back on yet because I might need to give it just a quick helping hand, but we'll see what happens. First things first. This up. All right, let's go ahead and fire it up. Well, she fires up good now. Let's go ahead and put that air cleaner back on, make sure she functions 100%. And there you have it. All it took was a little bit of a carb cleaning, and this thing is running back to normal again. Thanks again for tuning in to TJ Small Engine Repair. If you found this educational, or the information was good, or if you just found it entertaining, feel free to give me a like, comment, follow, subscribe, all that good stuff. And we'll see you guys next time. See ya.